Good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast. I'm out of the studio today, traveling. Unfortunately, this is the life of a security practitioner. We sometimes sit in the same place for months on end, and sometimes we just can't seem to find our footing. And we collect all these amazing miles that we end up never using because, well, never really take vacations. So there's that aspect to it. But thank you all for tuning in this morning. A packed show this Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. We've got a lot to talk about on this morning's show, so let's get right into it. Unfortunately, because I'm traveling, I couldn't find an espresso place, and so I don't have my coffee cup. Cheers. Hopefully tomorrow I will. I saw something around the corner. I got to check it out, but hopefully I will tomorrow. So with that being said, coffee cup cheers to whatever you're drinking this morning. Let's go ahead and get the show rocking and rolling. So Kimsuky, a North Korean threat actor and a significant threat actor, suffered a data breach by two attackers named Saber and Cyborg. They were citing ethical reasons for their actions, saying Kimsuky is hacking for all the wrong reasons. They're driven by political agendas and follow regime orders instead of practicing the art of hacking independently. Oh, how the. And the information published says, Kimsuky, you are not a hacker. You are driven by financial greed to enrich your leader and to fulfill their political agenda. This was the hacker's address to Kimsuky, published in the latest issue of Farrick, which was distributed at the DEF CON conference over the weekend. You steal from others and favor your own. You value yourself above the others. You are morally perverted. Now, mind you, this is how you know this wasn't a U.S. type of operation. Look how they spelled favor. They added the U. That's a classic indication of British English. The attackers dumped a portion of Kimsuky's backend, exposing both their tooling and some of their stolen data that could provide insights into some unknown campaigns and even undocumented compromises. The 8.9 gigabyte dump currently hosted on the distributed denial of service, distributed denial of secrets website contains, among others, phishing logs with multiple email accounts, targeted domains, a 0.7Z archive containing the complete source code of South Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs email platform, including webmail, admin, and archive modules, references to South Korean citizen certificates, and curated list of university professors, PHP generator toolkit for building phishing sites with detection evasion and redirection tricks, some live phishing kits, some unknown binary archives, Cobalt strike loaders, reverse shells, and Unera proxy modules found in VMware drag and drop cache, Chrome history, and linking to suspicious GitHub accounts, VPN purchases via Google Pay, and frequent use of various hacking forums, Google Translate used for Chinese error messages, and visits to Taiwan government and military sites, and bash history with SSH connections to internal systems. The attackers note that some of the above are already known or previously documented, at least partially. However, the dump does give a new dimension to this, and here's what this really means. At the end of the day, the cybercrime world, as uncentralized as it is, has a break-in moment where someone breaks from what the vision was, what the idea is. Now, this dump here does give us a really good idea of how state-backed attackers operate. And this is really, really rare. We often know how cyber criminal organizations operate, but to understand how the North Korean Kimsuky group operates is significant. They've been a major threat actor. This is definitely going to help in detection. This is going to set them back sometime as they have to rebuild the infrastructure, develop new tools. They'll likely lean in on their Chinese trainers in order to do all of that. And that's going to come in really, really handy for defenders, for a lot of our threat intel organizations, for a lot of the industry to have this information. This is a good day for defenders, for people that understand the threat of the North Korean regime and the Chinese regime as well, to help and put some of this stuff away. So we keep that there. The city of St. Paul has been really paralyzed by the ransomware attack they suffered several weeks ago. We now know that the Interlock ransomware gang is behind the ransomware attack, claiming to have stolen 43 gigabytes of data from the city. They've been listed on the leak site with no payment deadline or ransom demand listed. It appears that either the city did not pay Um, and so they're dumping the data. It's currently unclear what data was still stolen. Mayor Melvin Carter said during a press conference on July 29th, the city is most concerned about data related to government employees. Resident data is held in a cloud-based application. It was not impacted by the ransomware attack. They've been contacted by the threat actor with a specific demand for a specific ransom. They've not paid, and their threat was that they would release some data if they weren't able to get paid, according to Carter. But really, the impact of this is significant. The government has struggled to function for weeks since the ransomware attack. While 911 and emergency services were still available, a range of other critical government functions have been hampered by the attack. People can't pay utility bills online. Permits or business licenses have had to be done by pen and paper. The online payment portal for water bills is offline. The government said it can't accept water bill payments in any form, online, by phone, or in person. Late fees will be waived for the time being. City libraries don't have any Wi-Fi, computer, or printer services available. The staff can't create new accounts for those seeking them out. Alternative phone numbers and emails were created for residents to contact the city if they needed any questions. The city said last week that they've been made aware that attackers targeting the city's more than 300,000 residents with fake invoices from the government. They were urging people not to pay attention to those, as the threat actors were potentially trying to get people to pay water bills to a fake website in order to take advantage of the city. Governor Tim Walz at the time activated the National Guard to assist in recovery efforts. But now we know that this attack is really, really significant, and it shows you just how unprepared St. Paul was to this attack. Look, ransomware is difficult, but when you build a resilient program, you don't have weeks of inactivity. You may have a week of a shutdown, but then you have a good business continuity plan, you have a good resilience plan, you start to rebuild, you start to bring services online, and so forth. The city of Atlanta was the classic example. In the first ransomware attack, they had to go back to pen and paper. By the second and third time they were attacked, they were so resilient. My guess is we'll see the city of St. Paul hire a CISO, invest some in cyber as a lesson from all of this, but there should be a lesson to everyone else around, right? You do need to have resiliency in your local government, especially if you're the capital of the state. The Netherlands National Cybersecurity Center warning that the critical Citrix NetScaler vulnerability, that's CVE 2025-6543, is being exploited to breach critical organizations in the country. Citrix issued a bulletin about this back in June, warning the following versions were vulnerable to ongoing attacks. While the Flaw was initially thought to be exploited in denial of service attacks, the NCSC is now warning that indications show the attackers exploited it to archive to achieve remote code execution. They're warning that attackers have leveraged the Flaw to breach multiple entities in the Netherlands, then wiped traces of the attack to eliminate evidence of any sort of intrusion. According to the NCSC, these attacks occurred since at least early May, nearly 2 months before the published bulletin and patches were made available, so they were exploited as 0 days for an extended period. To address the risks, organizations are recommended to upgrade to the latest NetScaler ADC and gateway versions. And after installing the update, it is crucial to end all active sessions. And again, if you're listening, we'll have this available on our website at cyberhubpodcast.com. We'll put all of this stuff there so you can take advantage of it. An Erlang OTP vulnerability, whose existence came to light in mid-April of this year, has been exploited in the wild, with many attacks targeting OT networks. The Erlang OTP is a collection of libraries, middleware, and tools designed to creating real-time systems that require high availability, banking, e-commerce, communication, specifically when you think of energy. Researchers now discovered that the Erlang OTP SSH implementation is impacted by a critical vulnerability that could allow arbitrary code execution in the context of the SSH daemon, which can potentially give an attacker full access to the host, enabling unauthorized access and even the manipulation of sensitive data. CVE 2025-32433 impacts all unpatched SSH servers that leverage the Erlang OTP SSH libraries, and systems used for remote access are particularly at risk. The hole has been patched with the release of OTP-27.3.3, 26.2.5.11, and 25.3.2.20. Earlier versions are all affected. CISA added this to their KEF catalog on June 9th, but there has not been any sort of public reports describing the exploitation of the flaw. Palo Alto yesterday published a blog post detailing exploitation attempts, which the giant says they've seen since at least May 1st. They saw 70% of attacks observed by the company aimed at OT networks. A majority of the detections were seen in the US. OT and 5G environments use Erlang OTP due to its fault tolerance and scalability for high availability systems with minimal downtime, according to Palo Alto there. So they say that the SSH services exposed on the internet through various ports, including TCP port 2222, which is often used for older ICS products and protocols. So again, you want to make sure you get this patched up and you build resilience in your OT environments. Again, resilience is the name of the game. You're going to have to do this. Something that someone said, and it was Chatham House rule, so I can't say what was said last week, but they said the next 2 years are going to look really, really bad for vulnerabilities and exploits, because all these various AI tools we have are going to identify so many exploits and vulnerabilities, and it's just going to feel like a barrage coming at us. And if we understand that, then we know, that it's coming, and we need to build a plan now to be ready for this barrage that's going to be incoming. That's really important. SonicWall said late Wednesday of last week that the wave of attacks targeting SonicWall 7 customers since July involved a previously disclosed improper access control vulnerability and not a zero-day flaw. The company says the attacks, which involved ransomware, were associated with vulnerability CVE 2024-40766, which could lead to the firewall crashing. Affected customers were using legacy credentials when migrating from Gen Z to Gen 7 firewalls. They were able to identify the root cause by analyzing and correlating data from customer support cases as they were reported. The pattern began to emerge. Our internal threat teams began to see that this activity was linked to a previously disclosed vulnerability. There is no evidence of a zero-day. It's just chained together vulnerabilities. Researchers suspected the attacks might be related to a zero-day flaw, although Arctic Wolf previously said the activity was similar to prior attacks using it. So now they have evidence that exploitation or access to these appliances was across a couple of different firmware versions and a pretty wide variety of Gen Z firewall appliances. So we have that there. SonicWall said there were fewer than 40 confirmed compromises, and the company released guidance on how to change credentials and upgrade to SonicOS version 7.3.0. So you have that there. Good guys prevailed when 4 Ghanaian nationals were arrested and extradited to the U.S. in a massive fraud ring linked to the theft of over $100 million in romance scam and business email compromise attacks. The defendants were allegedly high-ranking members of a major international fraud ring based in Ghana and Africa that targeted companies and individuals across the U.S. between 2016 and May of 2023. Their names: Isaac Odoro Boateng, also known as Kofi Boat, Insua Ahmed Pascal, Derek Van Ubua, known as Van, and Patrick Kwame Asari, known as Borger, were extradited from Ghana and arrived to the U.S. last week. The defendants have been brought to be held accountable for their alleged roles in scamming companies and vulnerable Americans out of over $100 million, according to FBI Assistant Director in Charge, Christopher Rea. According to court documents, the fraudsters called themselves the Sakawa Boys or Game Boys, mainly targeted vulnerable older men or women who lived alone, deceiving them into believing they were in a romantic relationship over the internet after gaining their trust and tricking them into depositing money into accounts of middlemen in the U.S. Those middlemen would then launder the money, take their cut of the stolen funds, and send the rest to the members of the fraud ring in West Africa who coordinated the activities, known as chairman. The alleged scammer also tricked numerous business into wiring funds following business email compromise attacks using email addresses designed to spoof or impersonate accounts of customers or other employees. So Boateng and Ahmed were both chairmen in the operation, while Asari and Van Uba were also high-ranking members in the scam ring. They face charges of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, each carrying a maximum sentence of 20 years. They were also charged with conspiracy to commit money laundering. That carries a 20-year sentence. Conspiracy to receive stolen money, up to 5 years, and receipt of stolen money, that's up to 10 years. So all in all, they're looking at a very lengthy sentence if convicted. Wikipedia's operators lose a challenge in the UK to the UK Online Safety Act rules. So a UK court on Monday dismissed a challenge brought by Wikimedia Foundation to the country's Online Safety Act, which could prevent unverified users from making edits or adding to the post. So the UK has this Online Safety Act, and part of it is what they label your business to be category 1, 2, 3, and different categories have different requirements. Wikipedia is essentially looking to be labeled a category 1 platform, which they say would undermine the privacy and safety of Wikipedia volunteer contributors, potentially expose the encyclopedia to manipulation and vandalism, and divert essential resources from protecting people and improving Wikipedia. User verification, which is one of several requirements for Category 1, could expose contributors to data breaches, stalking, lawsuits, or even imprisonment by various regimes, according to the Wikimedia Foundation. Although the UK High Court dismissed the foundation challenge, it said it would revisit it if the organization was classified as a Category 1 by Ofcom later this year. So we'll see how that turns out. I actually don't agree with this challenge by Wikimedia just on a personal level. I think anyone who contributes to Wikipedia as a contributor who's changing information that's taken in the public should be validated. We should know who they are, and we should also be able to take action in the event they put in false information. So there's that there. And I know some people disagree with that, but at the end of the day, this will work itself out. And finally, Profero cracked the encryption of the Darkbit ransomware gang's encryptors, allowing victims to finally recover their files for free without paying a ransom. In 2023, an incident response handled by Profero experts who were brought in to investigate a ransomware attack on one of their clients, which had encrypted multiple VMware ESXi servers. The timing of the attack was suggested it was in retaliation for the 2023 drone strikes in Iran that targeted an ammunition factory belonging to the Iranian Defense Ministry. In the ransomware attack, the threat actors claimed to be from Darkbit, who posed as pro-Iranian hacktivists targeting educational institutes in Israel. The attackers included anti-Israel statements in their ransom notes, demanding ransom payments of 80 bitcoins. The INCD linked Darkbit to the Iranian state-sponsored APT hacking group known as Muddy Water, who have a history of conducting cyber espionage attack. At the time of the attack, no decryptor existed for Darkbit, so Profero researchers decided to analyze the malware for potential weaknesses. They did just that. They found the weakness, they developed a decryptor, and it's now publicly available for free. So if you were a victim of Darkbit and you're still missing data, you weren't able to recover all your data, that's now readily available. So go and check that out. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern live with all the latest and greatest. Until then, have a great rest of your day. Thank you all for tuning in. And most importantly, stay cyber.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.